The law. Behind the law of attraction, you've tried it. The vision boards, the gratitude journals, the affirmations in the mirror while your coffee gets cold. And maybe it worked once or twice, just enough to keep you believing. But mostly you're still waiting for the universe to deliver on its promises. Here's what no one tells you. The law of attraction isn't broken. You are operating under a different law entirely, a hidden legal system that's been running your life since before you could tie your shoes. While you've been trying to manifest abundance, your subconscious has been enforcing contracts you never knew you signed. Contracts written in invisible ink when you were 6 years old, watching your parents fight about money. Contracts drafted in the language of shame when your first love walked away. Contracts renewed every single time you told yourself you weren't ready, weren't worthy, weren't enough. Your mind operates like a courtroom. And right now, you're losing every case because you don't know the rules. But that changes today. In the next few hours, you'll learn the actual mechanics behind manifestation, not the mystical wait and hope version. The legal framework, the binding precedents, the evidence your subconscious demands before it will execute a single one of your desires. You'll discover why your positive thoughts get overruled by deeper verdicts. And you'll learn to become both the attorney who argues for your dreams and the judge who has the final say. This isn't about trying harder. It's about understanding the law. So let's begin where every legal case begins, with the contracts already in force. Your subconscious doesn't speak in wishes. It speaks in agreements. Every belief you hold about yourself, about money, about love, about what you deserve, exists as a binding contract in your mental filing system. These aren't suggestions. They're law. And your subconscious enforces them with the precision of a Supreme Court justice who never takes a day off. Most of these contracts were drafted before you turned 12. A child's mind is wide open, recording everything as truth without question. When your father said money doesn't grow on trees, your subconscious drafted a contract. Abundance is scarce, effort is hard, wanting more is greedy. When your mother stayed in a relationship that hurt her, your subconscious wrote, "Love means sacrifice. Leaving is selfish. My needs come last." When you raised your hand in class and someone laughed, a contract formed. Visibility is dangerous, small is safe, playing big invites, humiliation. You didn't consent to any of this. But in the courtroom of your mind, a child's observation is legally binding. And here's the mechanism that keeps these contracts alive. Every time you encounter evidence that confirms them, your subconscious stamps them as renewed. See someone else succeed while you struggle? That's proof the scarcity contract is valid. Watch another relationship fail? Confirmation that love hurts. Feel anxious about posting your work online? The humiliation precedent remains in force. Your brain is designed to seek consistency. It's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you safe by enforcing the rules it believes to be true. When you attempt to manifest something that contradicts an existing contract, your subconscious doesn't see possibility. It sees perjury, and it shuts you down with the efficiency of a judge who dismisses a case for lack of standing. This is why affirmations feel hollow. You're standing in your mental courtroom saying, "I am abundant," while your subconscious is holding up 50 years of signed documents that say the opposite. The law doesn't care about your wishes. It cares about your evidence. And right now, the evidence says you're bound by the old contracts. So here's your first actionable move. Something you can do in the next 60 seconds. Identify one area of your life that refuses to budge no matter how hard you try. Money, love, health, creative success. Pick one. Now ask yourself, what would a 6-year-old have concluded about this area after watching the adults around them? Not what you think now. What did you learn by osmosis back then? Write that sentence down. That's your active contract. You've just found the law that's been governing your reality. Understanding this changes everything. Because once you see the contracts, you can challenge them. But first, you need to know why your past attempts at change never made it past the courtroom door. Your subconscious operates on precedent. Just like a legal system, it looks to past rulings to determine current cases. Every time you tried something and failed, that became precedent. Every time you wanted love and got hurt, that's filed under evidence. Every time you went for the promotion and didn't get it, your subconscious recorded, precedent shows you're not leadership material. This is why breaking patterns feels impossible. You're not fighting a habit. You're fighting legal precedent backed by decades of case history. And in a court of law, precedent is almost impossible to overturn without overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Almost. The legal system allows for something called overturning precedent. It happens when new evidence is so compelling, so undeniable, that the old ruling can no longer stand. Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson. Obergefell versus Hodges overturned Baker versus Nelson. The law changed because the evidence changed. Your subconscious works the same way. It will change the law governing your life when you present evidence powerful enough to overturn precedent. But here's where most people fail. They try to use hearsay as evidence. Hearsay is secondhand information, something you heard someone say, something you read, something you hope might be true. In court, hearsay is inadmissible. Your subconscious rejects it instantly. This is why reading success stories doesn't make you successful. Why watching someone else's transformation doesn't transform you. Why motivational quotes fade by lunchtime. That's all hearsay. Your subconscious yawns and goes back to enforcing the contracts based on your direct experience. What your subconscious accepts as evidence is first-hand testimony. Things you personally witness. Things you directly experience. Things you can swear happened to you under oath. This is why tiny wins matter more than giant visualizations. A small success is admissible evidence. A big daydream is hearsay. When you successfully do one push-up after months of not exercising, your subconscious records that as testimony. When you have one honest conversation that deepens a relationship, that's evidence. When you charge slightly more for your work and someone pays it, that's sworn testimony that begins to challenge the scarcity precedent. So here's your second move. 60 seconds. Think of the contract you identified earlier. Now think of one micro-experience from your actual life that contradicts it. Not something you wish were true. Something that already happened. Maybe you were broke once and someone bought you dinner. Maybe you felt unlovable but your dog chose to sleep beside you. Maybe you thought you weren't creative but you solved a problem no one else could. Write it down. That's admissible evidence. It's small, but it's yours, and it's true. You've just filed your first counterclaim. Most people spend their lives under the jurisdiction of the wrong courts. Jurisdiction is a legal term that means authority. A judge in New York has no jurisdiction over a case in California. A family court judge can't rule on criminal matters. Jurisdiction determines who has the legal right to make binding decisions. And in your life, you've been giving jurisdiction to people and circumstances that have no legal right to govern you. Every time you check someone's social media and feel less than, you've granted them jurisdiction over your worth. Every time you let a rejection from 10 years ago dictate today's choices, you've allowed the past to maintain jurisdiction over your present. Every time you wait for permission, approval, or validation before taking action, you've transferred jurisdiction from yourself to someone else. And once you grant jurisdiction, their rulings become binding. Their opinions become your law. Their limitations become your ceiling. Your attention is the gavel that grants jurisdiction. Whatever you focus on becomes the presiding judge of that moment. Focus on your ex's new relationship, and they're now the judge ruling on your lovability. Focus on your competitor's success, and they're now the authority on your potential. Focus on your past failures, and history becomes the judge that determines your future. This is why spiraling happens. You're not weak. You're not broken. You've just accidentally granted jurisdiction to a court that only has evidence against you. The legal principle you need to understand is this: you can withdraw jurisdiction at any time. A case can be dismissed for lack of jurisdiction with a single motion. In your mind, that motion is redirection of attention. The moment you stop feeding a thought, it loses its power to rule over you. Not because the thought disappears, but because you've withdrawn its authority to make binding decisions about your reality. Here's the 60-second practice. Identify one person whose opinion holds too much weight in your life. Maybe it's a parent, an ex, a former boss, a stranger on the internet. Now say out loud or in your mind, I withdraw jurisdiction. Your opinion is noted but holds no authority over my choices. Feel the shift. That's not positive thinking. That's a legal motion. You've just reclaimed your courtroom. Now let's talk about the contracts you want. Because understanding the hidden legal system is only half the work. The other half is learning to draft new agreements that your subconscious will actually honor and enforce. And this requires precision. A poorly written contract is worse than no contract at all because it creates confusion, and your subconscious defaults back to the old law when it's uncertain. A binding subconscious contract has 4 elements. First, clarity. Vague desires are unenforceable. I want to be happy means nothing to your subconscious. Happy when? About what? Measured how? That's like writing a legal contract that says, we agree to do good things. no court would honor it. Your subconscious needs specificity, not because it's pedantic, but because it needs to know what evidence to look for, what behaviors to reinforce, what opportunities to flag as relevant. Clarity gives your subconscious instructions it can execute. Second, present tense language. Your subconscious doesn't understand future tense. It only knows now. When you say, "I will be confident," your subconscious files that under someday, which is the same legal category as never. When you say, "I am becoming confident," you're speaking a language your subconscious recognizes. Becoming is a present tense state. It allows for growth while claiming the identity now. This isn't semantics. It's syntax that determines enforceability. Third, emotional alignment. This is the signature that makes the contract binding. A contract signed under duress isn't valid. If you draft a new agreement while feeling desperate, resentful, or forceful, your subconscious flags it as coerced. It won't enforce it. The contract requires what lawyers call informed consent. You have to feel aligned with it, even if you don't fully believe it yet. Alignment isn't certainty. It's openness. It's the feeling of, "I could see this being true." That emotional signature is what transforms words into law. Fourth, consistency. A contract that's only referenced once is abandoned. Your subconscious needs to see you show up to court regularly, presenting evidence, renewing your claim, demonstrating that this agreement matters enough to maintain. This is why daily practice works. Not because repetition hypnotizes you, but because it establishes that the new contract is in active use. It's the difference between a law on the books that no one enforces and a law that shapes daily behavior. Here's your next 60-second move. Draft one sentence that meets all four criteria. Pick something small, not, "I am a millionaire." Try, "I am someone who handles money with calm confidence." Read it slowly. Notice if it feels true, possible, or at least not ridiculous. If it does, you've just drafted your first enforceable contract. Read it once every morning this week. That's consistency. You're building a case. Let's go deeper into why most manifestation attempts fail. It's not lack of desire. It's lack of standing. In legal terms, standing means you have a legitimate right to bring a case. You can't sue someone for a harm that didn't affect you. You can't bring a case without proving you're the injured party with a real stake in the outcome. Your subconscious applies the same standard. When you try to manifest something from a place of desperation, lack, or "I need this to be okay," you don't have standing. Because you're arguing from the position that you're incomplete without it. And the subconscious ruling is, if you're incomplete, you're not the right person to hold this outcome. Case dismissed. Standing comes from sufficiency, not from having everything, but from accepting where you are while reaching for more. It's the energy of, "I'm whole now and I'm expanding," versus "I'm broken now and I need this to fix me." The first has standing. The second doesn't. This is why gratitude practices work, but not for the reason people think. Gratitude doesn't attract abundance because the universe rewards nice people. Gratitude establishes standing by proving to your subconscious that you already have enough to bring a case. You're not begging. You're negotiating from a place of existing value. Think of it this way. A person who walks into a bank asking for a loan while crying about how broke they are gets denied. A person who walks in with a calm business plan showing existing assets and a growth strategy gets approved. Same request, different standing. Your subconscious is the bank, and it will only fund the version of you that demonstrates readiness, not desperation. So here's the practice. 60 seconds. Think of something you want. Now list 3 things you already have that are in the same category. Want a relationship? List 3 connections you already have, even if they're friendships. Want money? List 3 ways you already experience abundance, even if it's a pantry full of food. This isn't toxic positivity. It's establishing standing. You're proving to your subconscious that you're already in the game, just ready to level up. Now we need to talk about enforcement. Because you can draft the perfect contract, have all the standing in the world, and still watch nothing happen. Why? Because a law without enforcement is just a suggestion. Your subconscious will only manifest outcomes it believes it can enforce. And enforcement comes down to one thing: coherence. Coherence is alignment between your conscious desire and your subconscious wiring. When those two are in agreement, manifestation is fast and often effortless. When they're in conflict, nothing moves. You can consciously want $1 million, but if your subconscious is wired with the belief that rich people are greedy and you're a good person, those two programs cannot coexist. Your subconscious will enforce the deeper program every time. Not because it doesn't want you to have money, but because it believes having money would make you a bad person, and its primary job is to protect your identity. This is why shadow work matters. Not the trendy version where you journal about your trauma. The legal version where you find the conflicting contracts and resolve them. You can't enforce two laws that contradict each other. One will always override the other, and the deeper, older contract always wins unless you bring it into conscious awareness and renegotiate it. Here's how to find conflicts in under 60 seconds. Complete this sentence about your desired out. The solution isn't to push harder. It's to find the older contract and update it. You can't violate a subconscious agreement without consequence, but you can renegotiate it. This requires acknowledging the original purpose. That contract to stay small was written to protect you from something. Rejection, criticism, failure, visibility. Thank it for the protection. Then show it evidence that you're no longer in that danger. You're not 12 anymore. You have skills now. You have support. You can handle what comes. The old contract can retire. 60-second move. Think of a recent moment you self-sabotaged. Ask, what was I protecting myself from? Answer honestly. Then say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. I've got this now. You've just initiated a renegotiation. Do this every time the pattern shows up, and the old contract will lose its power because you're no longer in resistance to it. We need to address something uncomfortable. Inherited contracts. You didn't just form agreements based on your own experiences. You absorbed contracts from your family, your culture, your lineage. These are the hardest to see because they feel like truth, like the way things are, like reality itself. But they're not. They're agreements someone else made that got passed down to you like a genetic marker. If your grandmother believed women had to choose between career and family, that belief lives in your system even if you consciously reject it. If your father believed asking for help was weakness, that contract runs in your code even if you preach community and support. If your culture taught you that rest is laziness, that certain desires are shameful, that your identity comes with built-in limitations, you inherited those contracts, and they enforce themselves invisibly until you bring them into the light. The tricky part about inherited contracts is that they feel noble, true, or like loyalty. Challenging them feels like betrayal. But here's the legal reality. You are not bound by agreements made by previous generations. You didn't sign them. They don't have your consent, and you have every right to review and void them. This isn't dishonoring your ancestors. It's freeing yourself and them. Because when you break an inherited contract, you break it for the whole lineage, forward and backward. Here's the 60-second practice. Think of a belief about life, success, relationships, or identity that everyone in your family seems to share. Write it down. Then ask, is this mine or is this inherited? If it feels old, tired, or like something you never consciously chose, it's inherited. Now say, I honor where this came from, and I release it from my system. I choose differently. That's a legal severance. You've just opted out of a multi-generational contract. Let's talk about evidence in a way that will shift how you approach your entire day. Your subconscious is always collecting evidence. Every moment it's asking, what does this prove about me, about life, about what's possible? And it will find evidence for whatever you're looking for. This isn't mystical. It's called confirmation bias, and it's one of the most well-documented phenomena in psychology. Your brain filters reality to match your existing beliefs. But here's the part most people miss. You can weaponize this in your favor. If your subconscious is looking for evidence that you're unlucky, it will find it everywhere. Traffic jam? Proof. Rude cashier? Proof. Friend cancels plans? Proof. The evidence piles up, and the belief strengthens. But if you consciously direct your subconscious to look for evidence of the opposite, it will find that too. Same day, same events, different filter. Traffic jam becomes time to listen to a podcast that sparks an idea. Rude cashier becomes a reminder that everyone's fighting battles you can't see. Friend canceling becomes an unexpected evening to yourself, not toxic positivity. Strategic evidence collection. Here's the practice, and you can start right now. Pick one belief you're trying to establish. I am supported. Opportunities come easily to me. I am creative. Now for the next 24 hours, actively look for micro-evidence of that belief. Not giant proof, tiny signs. Someone holds a door. That's evidence of support. You think of a shortcut to solve a problem. Evidence of creativity. You find a parking spot quickly. Evidence that things come easily. Write down 3 pieces of evidence by this time tomorrow. You're training your subconscious to be a lawyer for your new contract, not a prosecutor against it. Now we go into the discovery phase. In legal proceedings, discovery is when both sides have to reveal all relevant information. No hiding documents, no concealing witnesses. Everything comes to light. You need to run discovery on your own subconscious because it's hiding contracts you don't even know exist. And those hidden agreements are running 50% of your life. The technique is simple but requires honesty. You're going to ask your subconscious direct questions and write down the first answer that comes, even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. This isn't journaling where you write what sounds good. This is a deposition where you're questioning a witness under oath. The witness is your deeper self, and it knows things your conscious mind has been avoiding. Here are the discovery questions. Pick one per day for the next week. Ask it internally, then write the immediate answer without editing. What am I afraid would happen if I fully succeeded? What do I gain by staying stuck? What would I have to give up if I changed? Whose approval would I lose if I stepped into my power? What's the worst thing I believe about myself that I never say out loud? What did I decide about myself the first time I failed at something important? What belief about money did I absorb before age 10? The answers that come up are your hidden contracts. They've been making decisions for you from the shadows. Now they're evidence. Now you can work with them. Most people avoid discovery because they don't want to see what's there. But here's the truth. Whatever you're hiding from is already in force. Bringing it to light doesn't make it worse. It makes it addressable. An unknown contract controls you. A known contract can be renegotiated. Let me give you a real example of how this works. Sarah came to this work believing she wanted a thriving business. She did all the right things. Website, marketing, networking. But clients weren't coming. When she ran discovery asking, what am I afraid would happen if I fully succeeded? The answer that came was, my sister would feel bad about herself. Sarah's sister had struggled with entrepreneurship and failed. Sarah had an unconscious contract that said her success would be a betrayal. Once she saw this, she could address it. She wrote a new contract. My success inspires others and shows what's possible. I can succeed and my sister can find her own path. Within 2 months, her business took off. Not because the universe suddenly favored her, but because she removed the hidden contract that was blocking enforcement. Another example, Marcus wanted a committed relationship but kept dating people who were emotionally unavailable. His discovery question was, what do I gain by staying stuck? The answer shocked him. I get to be right about love being dangerous. Marcus's parents had a volatile marriage that ended in a bitter divorce. He had formed a contract that said, committed relationships end in pain. By staying single or dating unavailable people, he never had to risk being wrong about that contract. Once he saw it, he could challenge it. He wrote, my parents' marriage was their story, not mine. I can create a different kind of relationship. Love can be safe and lasting. He started dating differently, choosing emotionally available partners. Within a year, he was in the healthiest relationship of his life. One more. Elena wanted to be a writer but never finished anything she started. Discovery question. What would I have to give up if I changed? Her answer. I'd have to give up the story that I'm a misunderstood genius who could have made it if life had been different. This was brutal to see. Elena had been using her unfulfilled potential as an identity. If she actually succeeded, she'd lose that narrative and have to be accountable to her actual work instead of her imagined brilliance. Once she saw this, she could choose. Keep the comforting story of unrealized potential, or release it and actually become a writer. She chose the latter. She wrote her new contract. I'm a writer who shows up to the work, not a dreamer who hides behind what could have been. She finished her first book within 6 months. These examples show you that discovery isn't comfortable. It reveals the contracts you've been avoiding. But it's essential. You can't renegotiate agreements you don't know exist. Let's talk about the enforcement power of identity in much deeper terms. Your subconscious doesn't manifest outcomes. It manifests identity. This is the key that unlocks everything. When you say, I want money, your subconscious doesn't hear that as a goal. It hears it as a request that's either consistent or inconsistent with your identity. If your identity is, I'm someone who struggles financially, the request for money is rejected because it violates who you are. But if your identity is, I'm someone who creates value and receives compensation, money flows because it's consistent with the contract of who you be. This is why acting as if works when it's done correctly. Not fake it till you make it performance. Real embodiment of the identity. When you make decisions from the identity you're claiming, you're providing evidence that the contract is already in force. Someone who is financially abundant doesn't agonize over a $15 purchase. not because they're reckless. Here's a complete identity shift protocol. First, define the outcome you want in one sentence. I want a six-figure business. Second, ask, who would I have to be for this to be normal? Not what would I have to do. Who would I have to be? For a six-figure business, you'd have to be someone who sees massive value in what they offer, who is comfortable being visible, who can handle success without guilt, who trusts their ability to serve at scale. Write down all the identity traits required. Third, pick one identity trait to embody today. Just one. Let's say, someone who is comfortable being visible. Fourth, make 3 decisions today from that identity. Maybe you post something on social media without overthinking it. Maybe you introduce yourself confidently at a networking event. Maybe you wear something that gets you noticed instead of blending in. 3 decisions. That's evidence that this identity is forming. Fifth, at the end of the day, journal about how those decisions felt. Did they feel foreign or natural? Scary or exciting? This feedback tells you where the identity is weak and needs more evidence, or where it's already starting to feel true. Repeat this protocol daily, cycling through different identity traits. Within 30 days, you'll have collected so much evidence for your new identity that your subconscious will start enforcing it automatically. Let me give you identity examples across different areas. For health and fitness, the outcome might be, I want to lose 30 pounds and feel energized. The identity is someone who honors their body as sacred, who moves because it feels good, who makes food choices from self-love, not punishment. Decisions from this identity: choosing the salad because you genuinely want to nourish yourself, going for a walk because movement feels good, going to bed early because you respect your body's need for rest. For creative work, the outcome might be, I want to finish my novel. The identity is someone who is a real writer, who shows up to the work regardless of inspiration, who values the process as much as the outcome. Decisions from this identity: writing for 20 minutes even when you don't feel inspired, reading your work out loud to hear what needs editing, calling yourself a writer when people ask what you do. For relationships, the outcome might be, I want a deep, committed partnership. The identity is someone who is worthy of love, who can be vulnerable, who chooses healthy partners, who communicates needs clearly. Decisions from this identity: expressing a need instead of hoping someone will guess it, setting a boundary without guilt, choosing to date someone emotionally available even if they're not as exciting as the unavailable person. Notice in each case, the identity comes first and the decisions flow from it. This is the opposite of how most people approach change. Most people try to do different things while keeping the same identity. That doesn't work. You have to become someone different, and then the new behaviors are just natural expressions of who you are now. Now let's build a complete relapse-proofing system, because this is where most people fail. They do the work, things shift, and then life gets hard or they get triggered and they slide back. The progress disappears. They think they failed. They didn't fail. They just didn't have a system to catch the relapse before it became complete. A relapse-proofing system has 5 components. First, early warning signs. These are the specific thoughts, feelings, or behaviors that show up when you're starting to slide back into old contracts. For some people, it's withdrawing from friends. For others, it's binge-watching shows to numb out. For others, it's becoming hypercritical of themselves or others. For others, it's skipping their morning practices. Write down your 5 early warning signs right now. These are your yellow lights. When you see them, you know to intervene before you're fully back in the old pattern. Second, circuit breakers. These are specific actions you take the moment you notice a yellow light. They need to be tiny, immediate, and non-negotiable. If you're spiraling and you tell yourself you need to meditate for an hour, you won't do it, and you'll feel worse. Circuit breakers are micro-interventions. Examples: 5 deep breaths while saying your identity statement. A 2-minute walk outside. Texting one supportive friend, I need a reality check. Reading your contract list out loud. Drinking a glass of water slowly while focusing only on the sensation. Doing 10 jumping jacks to shift your physiology. Pick 5 circuit breakers now. Write them down. Commit to using at least one whenever you see a yellow light. Third, a recommitment ritual. This is what you do when you realize you've fully relapsed into an old contract. You don't shame yourself. You don't start over from scratch. You perform a ritual that acknowledges what happened and consciously chooses the new contract again. Here's a complete recommitment ritual you can use. Find a quiet space. Sit down with your hand over your heart. Take 3 deep breaths. Then say out loud, I see I reverted to the old contract of name it. That contract kept me safe once, but it doesn't serve me now. I release it with gratitude for the protection it offered. I now recommit to my new contract. Read your new contract 3 times. This recommitment is binding. I begin again from here, not from zero. All the work I've done still counts. This is just a course correction. Then take one immediate action that aligns with your new contract, even if it's tiny. That action is evidence that the recommitment is real. Fourth, an accountability structure. This is someone or something that helps you stay on track. Could be a friend you check in with weekly. Could be a journal where you track your evidence daily. Could be a coach or therapist who knows your contracts. Could be a community of people doing similar work. The structure doesn't matter. What matters is that you've externalized your commitment in some way that creates gentle pressure to follow through. Research shows that having any form of accountability increases follow-through by over 60%. Don't skip this piece. Fifth, a setback analysis protocol. When you relapse, you need a structured way to understand why, so you can prevent it next time. Here's the protocol. Within 24 hours of the relapse, journal these questions. What was happening in my life right before the relapse? What was I feeling? What triggered the old contract? What need was I trying to meet by reverting? What was I afraid would happen if I stayed in the new contract? What can I do differently next time this trigger shows up? This analysis transforms a setback into data. You're not failing. You're learning the conditions under which your old contracts try to reassert themselves. That's incredibly valuable information. Let me give you a complete relapse-proofing example. Tom's old contract was, I'm unlovable and will always end up alone. His new contract was, I am worthy of deep connection and love. I attract healthy relationships. His 5 early warning signs were isolating for more than 2 days, declining social invitations without good reason, mentally rehearsing ways people have disappointed him, comparing himself negatively to people in relationships, consuming media about betrayal or heartbreak. His 5 circuit breakers were sending one text to a friend even if he didn't feel like it, going to a coffee shop just to be around people, reading a list of times people showed up for him, doing a 2-minute loving-kindness meditation focusing on himself, watching a comedy clip to shift his emotional state. His recommitment ritual was lighting a candle, placing his hand over his heart and saying, I choose to be loved. I choose to be seen. I choose connection. This is who I am now. Then he'd call or text someone he cared about. His accountability structure was a weekly call with his best friend where he shared his progress and struggles. His setback analysis protocol was journaling the 5 questions above whenever he noticed himself sliding back. With this complete system, Tom caught relapses early and got back on track quickly. The old contract still tried to activate, especially during stress or rejection, but it no longer had the power to pull him fully back. He had a system that supported his new contract. Now let's design a 60-day transformation sequence with specific daily micro-challenges. This is a complete program you can follow to systematically rewire your subconscious legal system. Each day has one small, specific practice. None should take more than 15 minutes. The cumulative effect is massive. Days 1 through 7, Discovery Week. Day 1. Identify your primary limiting contract in one area of life. Write it clearly. Day 2. Ask, when did this contract form? What was happening? Write the origin story. Day 3. List 10 pieces of evidence your subconscious has collected that support this contract. Be honest. Day 4. Answer the discovery question, contract. Day 5. Answer, what would I have to give up if I release this contract? Day 6. Answer, what am I afraid would happen if I lived without this limitation? Day 7. Review everything you've written this week. Circle the most surprising insight. That's your leverage point for change. Days 8 through 14, Contract Drafting Week. Day 8. Write your new contract to replace the limiting one. Use present tense, make it specific. Ensure it feels aligned, not forced. Day 9. Identify the identity required to live this contract. Write 5 identity traits. Day 10. Find 3 pieces of evidence from your past that show you already have glimpses of this identity. Day 11. Write a statute of limitations declaration for the event that formed your old contract. Read it out loud. Day 12. Identify one conflicting contract that might sabotage your new one. Write an integration statement. Day 13, create your recommitment ritual. Write it out step by step. Day 14, read your new contract out loud 3 times. Sign and date it. This is now active law, days 15 through 21, evidence collection week. Day 15, set 3 alarms during the day. When each goes off, look for one piece of micro-evidence supporting your new contract. Write all 3 down. Day 16, make one decision from your new identity. Journal about how it felt. Day 17, use one circuit breaker when you notice an old pattern trying to activate. Day 18, tell one person about your new contract. Speaking it out loud to a witness makes it more real. Day 19, find evidence in the external world that your new contract is possible. Maybe someone who embodies what you're claiming. Study them. Day 20, collect 5 more pieces of personal evidence. You're building case history. Day 21, review all evidence from this week. Notice how much has accumulated in just 7 days. Days 22 through 28, Identity Embodiment Week. Day 22, wake up and immediately state your new identity 3 times. I am someone who, let it be the first thing your subconscious hears. Day 23, make 3 decisions today from your new identity, not your old default. Day 24, when you catch yourself in old identity behavior, pause, name it, then choose differently. Day 25. Wear something or change something about your appearance that aligns with your new identity. Day 26. Speak from your new identity in one conversation. Notice how it feels. Day 27. Do one thing your old identity never would have done. It can be small. Day 28. Journal about what's different this week compared to before you started this work. Days 29 through 35. Precedent-setting week. Day 29. Take one action that directly challenges your old contract, something you've been avoiding. Day 30. Celebrate that action as precedent. Write it formally as case law. Day 31. Take another precedent-setting action in a different area. Day 32. Notice any self-sabotage that shows up. Use your protocol to identify the competing contract. Day 33. Set one more precedent that proves your new contract is enforceable. Day 34. Tell the story of one of your precedent-setting actions to someone. You're creating witness testimony. Day 35. Review all precedents you've set this week. These are permanent additions to your case history. Days 36 through 42. Jurisdiction Withdrawal Week. Day 36. Identify one person to whom you've granted too much jurisdiction. Formally withdraw it. Day 37. Identify one circumstance that's been ruling over your emotional state. Withdraw jurisdiction from it. Day 38. Notice how many times today you automatically give jurisdiction away. Catch it and redirect. Day 39. Spend one full day consciously guarding your jurisdiction. You're the only authority on your worth. Day 40. Write down 3 opinions about you that you've been treating as verdicts. Reclassify them as testimony, not rulings. Day 41. Practice making one decision without checking what anyone else thinks. Your ruling stands. Day 42. Journal about what it feels like to be the authority in your own life instead of constantly seeking external validation. Days 43 through 49, Conflict Resolution Week. Day 43. Identify a second conflicting contract you haven't addressed yet. Write both sides clearly. Day 44. Ask each side what it's trying to protect you from. Find the positive intention. Day 45. Write an integration statement that honors both needs. Day 46. Test the integration by imagining living from it. Does it feel true? Refine if needed. Day 47. Make one decision from the integrated contract instead of choosing between the conflicting ones. Day 48. Notice if any internal resistance shows up. That's a sign of a deeper conflict that needs resolution. Day 49. Review all conflicts you've resolved so far. Notice how much internal peace has been created by ending these wars. Days 50 through 56. Enforcement Building Week. Day 50. Check for coherence across all levels. Conscious desire, subconscious belief, emotional state, behavioral action. Are they aligned? Day 51. If you find incoherence, identify which level is off. Work specifically on that level today. Day 52. Make all decisions today from your new contract, no exceptions. This is full enforcement practice. Day 53. When old contracts try to activate, immediately invoke your new contract as the governing law. Day 54. Practice surrender. You've done your part. Trust the process without micromanaging. Day 55. Notice any manifestations that have shown up since you started this work. Acknowledge them as enforcement evidence. Day 56. Write a letter to yourself about what enforcement feels like versus the old struggle of trying to force things. Days 57 through 60. Integration and Commitment Week. Day 57. Review your entire journey from day 1. What has shifted? Write it all down. Day 58. Identify one area you still need to work on. That becomes your focus for the next cycle. Day 59. Perform your recommitment ritual even if you haven't relapsed. You're strengthening the contract through renewal. Day 60. Write a commitment statement for ongoing practice. What will you do daily, weekly, monthly to maintain your new contracts? Sign it. This is your maintenance plan. This 60-day sequence gives you a complete rewiring protocol. If you actually do these daily practices, your subconscious legal system will be fundamentally different by day 60. Not because you've perfected anything, but because you've established new patterns, collected substantial evidence, and proven to your subconscious that the new contracts are serious, supported, and enforceable. Now let's go even deeper into specific common contracts and how to rework them. Let's start with money, because this is where most people have the deepest, most complex contracts. Money contracts are usually formed very early and reinforced constantly by culture, family, and experience. They're also tangled up with worthiness, safety, identity, and morality. The most common money contract is scarcity. Money is scarce, hard to get, and I never have enough. This contract usually forms from watching parents stress about bills, hearing messages like, "We can't afford that," or experiencing genuine financial hardship. The evidence accumulates over decades. Every unexpected expense becomes proof. Every month where money is tight becomes confirmation. The contract gets stronger and stronger until it feels like objective reality instead of a belief. To challenge a scarcity contract, you need to run very specific discovery. Ask, what is the first memory I have of money being a problem? What did I learn from that experience? What contract did I form? Then ask, what do I gain by believing money is scarce? This sounds counterintuitive, but there are gains. Maybe scarcity gives you permission to not take risks. Maybe it protects you from the responsibility that comes with wealth. Maybe it keeps you in solidarity with family or friends who struggle. Find the secondary gain, or the contract will reassert itself no matter how much you try to change it. Then draft a new money contract. Not, "I am rich," if that feels absurd. Try, "I am learning to manage money with increasing skill and calm. Money flows through me in proportion to the value I create. I trust my ability to generate income." That's specific, present tense, and feels possible. Now collect evidence. Did someone give you a compliment that indicated value? That's evidence you create value, which attracts money. Did you negotiate a better price on something? That's evidence of financial skill. Did you find money you forgot about? That's evidence that money shows up unexpectedly. The evidence doesn't have to be huge. It has to be consistent. Another common money contract is money corrupts, or wealthy people are greedy and I'm a good person. This creates an impossible bind. You can't become what you've judged as immoral. To rework this, you need to separate money from morality. Money is a tool. It amplifies who you already are. If you're generous, money makes you more generous. If you're greedy, money makes you more greedy. But the money itself is neutral. Write a new contract. I can be wealthy and value-driven. Money allows me to have greater impact. I use resources in alignment with my principles. Then find examples of wealthy people who do good in the world. Let their existence be evidence that wealth and goodness can coexist. You're overturning precedent. Third money contract is, "I'm bad with money," or "I don't understand finances." This contract often forms after a financial mistake or from internalized messages that you're not smart enough to handle money. The contract then creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You avoid learning about money because you believe you're bad at it, which means you never get better, which confirms the belief. Then collect evidence intentionally. Start with pets if you have them. Animals love without agenda. That's pure evidence of your lovability. Then friendships. List 5 times friends showed they care. That's evidence. Then past romantic relationships. Even relationships that ended had moments of genuine connection and care. That was real. It still counts as evidence that you're capable of being loved. You're building a case that the unlovable contract is based on incomplete evidence. Another relationship contract is, love equals pain, or intimacy is dangerous. This forms after heartbreak, betrayal, or watching painful relationships as a child. The contract protects you from future pain by preventing intimacy, but it also prevents joy, connection, and growth. To rework this, you need to separate one experience from all experiences. Yes, love has hurt you before. That's true. But it's not a universal law that love always hurts. It's possible to create relationships that are safe and nourishing. Write a new contract. I can be vulnerable in relationships while maintaining boundaries. Not all love leads to pain. I choose partners who are emotionally available and capable of healthy love. I trust my ability to navigate intimacy without losing myself. Then take calculated risks with vulnerability. Share something real with a trusted friend and notice that it deepens the connection instead of leading to pain. That's evidence. Set a boundary in a relationship and notice that healthy people respect it. That's evidence that intimacy doesn't have to be dangerous. Over time, these new experiences overwrite the old precedent. Third relationship contract is I have to earn love through usefulness, or people only want me when I'm giving. This creates exhausting relationships where you're constantly performing, helping, fixing, and depleting yourself to maintain connection. The contract says, if I stop being useful, I'll be abandoned. This often forms from childhood where love was conditional on being good, helpful, or not causing problems. To challenge this, you need to test it. What happens if you ask for help instead of always giving it? What happens if you say no instead of always saying yes? What happens if you show up messy and needy instead of polished and capable? The testing will be scary because your old contract says this will lead to rejection. But when you test it with safe people and they don't leave, that becomes powerful evidence. Write a new contract. I am valuable as I am, not for what I do. I can receive without guilt. Healthy relationships are mutual, not transactional. I deserve care even when I'm not being useful. Then practice receiving. Let someone help you. Accept a compliment without deflecting. Ask for support when you need it. Each time someone shows up for you without requiring performance, that's evidence your new contract is enforceable. Let's address health and body contracts. Because these are particularly insidious and often formed through trauma, cultural messaging, and early experiences with food and body image. The most common contract is, my body is broken, or my body betrays me. This forms after illness, injury, chronic pain, or simply from years of struggling with weight, energy, or physical limitations. The contract creates a hostile relationship with your body where you see it as an enemy instead of a partner. To rework this, you need to establish gratitude for what your body does do, even if it's imperfect. Your body is breathing, digesting, healing, moving. It's doing thousands of things, right? Even if some things are challenging. Write a new contract. My body is doing its best with the resources and information it has. I am learning to support my body with compassion. My body and I are on the same team. Then collect evidence of your body's intelligence. Notice when you get tired and your body is asking for rest. That's wisdom, not weakness. Notice when you crave certain foods and your body might be signaling a nutritional need. That's communication, not betrayal. You're shifting from adversarial to collaborative. Another body contract is thin equals worthy, or I'm only valuable at a certain size. This contract is culturally reinforced constantly and often formed during adolescence when bodies change and comparison intensifies. The contract makes your worth conditional on your appearance, which creates a cycle of restriction, shame, and compensation. To challenge this, you need to separate worth from appearance. Your value as a human is not determined by your body size. That's culturally constructed, not cosmically true. Write a new contract. My worth is inherent and unchanging regardless of my body. I treat my body with respect because it deserves care, not because it needs to earn care through appearance. Health and worth are separate. Then collect evidence of your value that has nothing to do with your body. Your kindness, your intelligence, your creativity, your loyalty, your humor. These are real and they exist independent of your size. Also notice people you love and respect who don't meet cultural beauty standards. You don't value them less, which proves that worth and appearance are separate. If it's true for them, it's true for you. A third body contract is exercise is punishment, or healthy eating is deprivation. These contracts form from diet culture messaging and misguided health approaches. Movement becomes something you force yourself to do to compensate for eating. Food becomes good or bad, and you become good or bad based on what you eat. This makes health feel like punishment, which is unsustainable. To rework this, you need to reconnect with intrinsic motivation. Movement for the joy of feeling strong or energized, not to burn calories. Nourishing food because it makes you feel good, not because it's morally superior. Write a new contract. I move my body because it feels good and I'm capable. I nourish myself with foods that support my energy and health. Self-care is a gift I give myself, not a punishment I endure. Then find evidence of intrinsic rewards. Notice how you feel after a walk. More clear-headed? That's intrinsic reward. Notice how you feel after eating a nourishing meal. More energized? That's intrinsic reward. You're collecting evidence that health practices feel good, which makes them sustainable, which builds more evidence. The contract shifts from punishment to care. Now let's create a detailed relapse recovery roadmap, because relapses will happen, and how you handle them determines whether you spiral back completely or quickly return to your new contracts. Most people treat relapse as total failure, which creates shame, which leads to giving up. But relapse is actually just data about what conditions trigger your old contracts. If you handle it correctly, each relapse makes you stronger. When you notice you've relapsed, first do a physiological reset before trying to do mental work. Your nervous system is likely activated, which means your prefrontal cortex isn't fully online and you can't think clearly. So first, take 5 deep breaths, focusing only on the exhale being longer than the inhale. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Second, get your body moving for 90 seconds. Shake out your arms, do jumping jacks, go up and down stairs. This metabolizes stress hormones. Third, drink cold water. The cold temperature sends a signal to your nervous system that you're safe. Now you're regulated enough to think clearly. Next, identify exactly which old contract got activated. Not, I felt bad. Specifically, the contract that I'm not good enough got activated when I saw my friend's promotion announcement. Naming it precisely is crucial. Then ask the discovery questions. What was the trigger? What was I feeling right before the relapse? What need was I trying to meet by reverting to the old contract? Be honest. Maybe the old contract of staying small is safe got activated because visibility has been increasing, and that's scary. The old contract offered relief from that fear. That's useful information. Then perform your recommitment ritual exactly as you designed it. Don't skip steps or do it half-heartedly. This is a legal proceeding, not a casual gesture. You're formally recommitting to your new contract and dismissing the old one's temporary authority. After the ritual, take one immediate action that aligns with your new contract. If your new contract is, I am capable and ready for success, maybe you send the email you've been avoiding. If it's I am worthy of love, maybe you text someone you care about. The action is evidence that the recommitment is real, not just words. Finally, update your relapse-proofing system based on what you learned. Add the new trigger to your early warning signs list. Create a new circuit breaker specifically for this type of trigger. Adjust your accountability structure if needed. Each relapse makes your system more sophisticated. You're not failing. You're learning the architecture of your own subconscious defense mechanisms. That's valuable. Let me give you a complete relapse recovery example. Jessica had been working on the contract, I am financially capable and money flows to me. For 3 weeks, she was consistent. She was tracking her money, making conscious decisions, collecting evidence. Then she got an unexpected bill for $1,200. She immediately relapsed into her old contract of, I'm terrible with money and there's never enough. She panicked, looked at her account obsessively, felt the familiar despair. First, she did her physiological reset. 5 deep breaths, 2 minutes of jumping jacks, cold water. Her nervous system calmed. Then she identified the contract. The old scarcity contract got activated by the unexpected expense. I felt overwhelmed and defaulted to the familiar pattern of panic and despair. She asked the discovery questions. What need was the old? Then she performed her ritual. She sat with her hand over her heart and said, I see I reverted to the scarcity contract. That contract kept me safe from disappointment, but it also keeps me small. I release it with gratitude. I recommit to my new contract. I am financially capable and money flows to me. I handle unexpected expenses with calm problem solving. I trust myself with money. This recommitment is binding. She read her new contract 3 times, then she took immediate action. Instead of panicking, she looked at her budget, moved some money around, set up a payment plan for part of the bill. She handled it like someone who is financially capable. That action was evidence that her recommitment was real. Finally, she updated her system. She added unexpected expenses to her early warning signs and created a new circuit breaker. When unexpected expenses show up, I will pause, breathe, and remind myself that capable people handle unexpected things. That's what capable means. The next time an unexpected expense showed up 2 months later, she caught it early, used her circuit breaker, and didn't fully relapse. The system worked. The relapse had taught her how to be more resilient. Now let's design advanced practices for when you've done the foundational work and you're ready to go deeper. These practices are for people who have established new contracts and are now working on subtle layers of resistance, inherited patterns, and unconscious loyalty to old systems. Advanced Practice 1. Generational Contract Healing. This goes beyond just identifying inherited contracts. You're actively healing the lineage. Choose one inherited contract you've identified. Research or reflect on where it might have come from. Did your grandmother live through economic hardship? Did your grandfather experience war trauma? Did your parents grow up in oppressive cultural systems? Understanding the origin creates compassion instead of resentment. Then write a formal release letter. To my ancestors who carried the belief that inherited contract, I see why you needed this belief. It protected you in circumstances I cannot fully understand. I honor your survival, and I release this belief from my lineage. I am safe to choose differently. My success does not dishonor you. It frees us all. Read this letter out loud. Some people report profound shifts after doing this practice, as if a weight lifts that they didn't know they were carrying. Advanced Practice 2. Future Self-Integration. Most people work on past contracts but ignore future contracts. You have beliefs about your future that are limiting you now. I'll never be able to retire. Relationships always fade. Success won't last. These are contracts about future inevitability, and they're just as binding as past ones. To work with these, use a future self meditation. Sit quietly and imagine yourself 10 years from now, having released all your limiting contracts. See that future self clearly. What are they like? How do they move through the world? What decisions do they make? Then ask that future self, what do I need to know to become you? What contract do I need to release now? Listen for the answer. Write it down. That's direct communication between your current self and your highest potential. It bypasses your conscious resistance. Advanced Practice 3. Somatic Contract Release. Some contracts aren't stored in thoughts. They're stored in your body. Tension in your shoulders might be holding the contract, I have to carry everything alone. Shallow breathing might be enforcing, it's not safe to take up space. Chronic stomach issues might be connected to, I can't trust anyone. To release somatic contracts, you need body-based practices. Try this. Scan your body and notice where you hold tension. Focus on that area. Ask it, what contract are you holding? Wait for the answer, which might come as a word, image, or feeling. Then breathe into that area and imagine releasing the contract with each exhale. You might need to do this many times, but slowly the physical holding pattern releases and the contract loses its anchor in your body. Advanced Practice 4. Paradoxical Commitment. This is when you fully commit to a new contract while simultaneously being willing to never see it manifest. It sounds contradictory, but it resolves the desperation that blocks enforcement. You draft your contract, collect your evidence, embody your identity, take aligned action, and you also release attachment to the outcome. I commit fully to being someone who is financially abundant. And if abundance never comes in the form I expect, I'm still valuable and whole. This paradox creates coherence. You're no longer needing the outcome to prove your worth, which means your subconscious doesn't flag it as desperate. The contract can be enforced because it's not under the pressure of fixing you. Advanced Practice. 5. Contract Meditation Practice. This is a daily practice for maintaining and deepening your new contracts. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Sit comfortably. Spend the first 2 minutes just breathing and settling. Then bring your new contract to mind. Don't just think the words. Feel what it would be like to live fully from this contract. See yourself making decisions from this identity. Notice how your body feels when this contract is active. Spend 5 minutes in this felt sense. Then spend the last 3 minutes imagining evidence showing up that confirms this contract. See opportunities, conversations, synchronicities. You're programming your subconscious to recognize and attract evidence. Do this daily, and your new contracts become deeply embedded. Now let's create a quarterly review system because your internal legal system needs regular audits, just like any legal system needs periodic review. Every 90 days, set aside 2 hours for a complete contract audit. This isn't optional if you want sustained transformation. Without regular review, old contracts slowly reassert themselves, new contracts get neglected, and you drift back toward default patterns without realizing it. Here's your quarterly audit protocol. First hour, contract review. List all the contracts you've been working with. For each one, ask, is this contract still active? Am I enforcing it consistently? Has it become automatic, or do I still need conscious effort? Is there evidence that this contract is working? If a contract isn't being enforced, either recommit with renewed intensity or release it and work on something else. You can't maintain 20 contracts at once. Pick your top 3 and focus there. Second hour, new layer discovery. Now that you've cleared some obvious contracts, what's underneath? Run discovery on a new question. What's working in my life and what underlying contract is supporting it? This is reverse engineering your success. You're identifying contracts that are already serving you so you can consciously reinforce them. Then ask, what's still stuck and what contract might be causing it? This reveals the next layer to work on. Write down the new contracts you've discovered. These become your focus for the next 90 days. After your audit, create your next 90-day plan. Pick 3 contracts to focus on. Design specific practices for each one. Set calendar reminders for weekly check-ins. Update your accountability structure. This level of systematization is what separates people who have temporary shifts from people who create permanent transformation. Let me walk you through a complete example of a 90-day transformation. Month 1 is foundation. You identify your primary limiting contract, run complete discovery, draft your new contract, and begin daily evidence collection. You're building the new legal structure. Month 2 is enforcement. You're making decisions from your new identity consistently, setting precedents, withdrawing jurisdiction from external authorities, and catching old patterns faster. You're strengthening the new contract through action. Month 3 is integration. The new contract starts to feel normal instead of aspirational. You're less conscious of it because it's becoming automatic. You're also identifying the next layer of contracts that need work. Real example. Month 1, David identified his contract. I'm not a leader. Authority figures are more qualified than me. He ran discovery and found this formed when his ideas were dismissed in school and at home. He drafted a new contract. I am a capable leader with valuable perspectives. I trust my judgment. I contribute meaningfully to decisions. He collected evidence daily. Times he solved problems at work. Moments when people asked his opinion. Situations where his instincts were correct. Month 2. David started making decisions from his new identity. He spoke up in meetings when before he would have stayed quiet. He applied for a leadership role he would have previously deemed himself unqualified for. He stopped deferring to others when he had expertise. Each of these actions was precedent-setting. His subconscious started to accumulate evidence that the new contract was enforceable. Month 3, David got the leadership position. His new contract was being enforced by reality. But more importantly, he felt different internally. The thought, I'm not a leader, would occasionally surface, but it no longer carried conviction. It was a memory of an old contract, not a current ruling. He could dismiss it easily. By month 3, his new contract was integrated enough that he could identify the next layer. I deserve success without suffering for it. That became his focus for the next 90 days. This is how real transformation works. Not one dramatic shift, but systematic work over time that compounds into a completely different way of being. Now let's address the ultimate integration, living as your own Supreme Court permanently. This isn't a temporary practice. It's a permanent identity shift. Here's your final practice to solidify this identity. Every evening for the next 90 days, do a 10-minute Supreme Court session. Review your day and identify 3 moments where you had the opportunity to rule on meaning. Maybe a setback happened. Maybe someone gave feedback. Maybe you felt doubt. For each moment, write, what was the default interpretation? What ruling did I make or could I have made as the Supreme Court of my consciousness? Did I maintain my authority or give it away? If you gave it away, rewrite the moment with you as the authority. You're training your subconscious that you are always the final ruling body. After 90 days of this practice, being the authority becomes automatic. You'll notice that you naturally pause before accepting interpretations. You'll catch yourself before giving jurisdiction away. You'll make rulings in real time without having to think about it. The practice becomes who you are. We're coming to the close now, and I want to leave you with the most important truth. This work is never finished. You don't graduate from being the conscious architect of your internal legal system. You just get better at it. New situations will trigger old contracts. New growth will reveal deeper layers. New ambitions will require new contracts. This is not a problem. This is the process of being human and evolving. The difference between who you were when you started this and who you're becoming is profound. You now understand that your subconscious operates as a legal system with contracts, precedent, evidence, jurisdiction, and enforcement mechanisms. You know why manifestation fails when there's incoherence, conflicting contracts, lack of standing, or desperate energy. You have specific protocols for discovery, contract drafting, evidence collection, precedent setting, conflict resolution, and relapse recovery. You have daily practices, 60-day sequences, quarterly audits, and lifetime integration strategies. Most importantly, you understand that you are the authority. Not your past, not other people, not circumstances, not invisible agreements formed before you could question them. You have always been the judge in your own courtroom. You just forgot for a while. Now you remember, and remembering changes everything. So here's your commitment, not to perfection, not to never struggling, not to immediately manifesting everything you want, but to this, showing up to your own courtroom, being the conscious architect of your internal legal system, drafting contracts that serve your highest good, collecting evidence for those contracts, making rulings in your favor when the evidence supports it, challenging beliefs that no longer serve you, withdrawing jurisdiction from anything except your own highest wisdom, living as the authority in your own life. This is the law behind the law of attraction. It's not magic, it's mechanics. Your subconscious enforces whatever contracts you give it. For most of your life, you've been giving it contracts based on childhood conclusions, cultural programming, and traumatic precedent. Now you know how to consciously draft contracts based on who you're becoming instead of who you've been. The system is neutral. It just enforces whatever law you establish. So establish laws that serve you. You have everything you need now. The understanding, the practices, the protocols, the examples, the daily micro-challenges, the relapse-proofing systems, the quarterly audits, the lifetime integration path. What remains is your choice to use them. Every single day is a choice. Will you let old contracts run by default? Or will you show up and consciously govern your internal world? Will you accept the rulings that circumstances try to impose? Or will you exercise your authority as the supreme court of your own consciousness? The answer determines everything. Not just what you manifest, but who you become. Because this work isn't really about getting things. It's about taking back your power. It's about recognizing that you were never broken, never powerless, never at the mercy of forces beyond your control. You were just operating under contracts you didn't know existed, enforcing laws you never consciously chose, living under jurisdiction you accidentally granted to people and circumstances that have no right to govern you.